Stock market crash tied to Trump tariffs. Emergency budget bill in question. Democrats are slow learners. Days of reckoning for some universities. This is Dr. David D. Shine for Saving America with my take on the key stories from this week focused on politics and business. With the current international roller coaster, it's hard for some of us commentators to catch our breath. Stock market crash tied to Trump tariffs. One sure bet with the U.S. stock market is that investors hate uncertainty. And with the wild first 6 weeks of the Trump administration, change has been coming fast and furious. At this time, the market has lost at least $4 trillion in market value. First, much of this is what I call funny money, here today, gone tomorrow. Many of the stocks involved traded far beyond the old-fashioned benchmark of a modest multiple of earnings versus share price. Second, I have witnessed dramatic drops in the market in the past. I recall early in 2009, the market indexes dropped in half. That was a major recession. Third, most financial advisors will counsel that the best thing to do if your stocks are down is to sit tight and wait for things to stabilize. In 2009, like most people, the little bit that I had in the stock market took a major hit. But I stood firm, and by 2012, I was back even, and later still, things were pretty good. Naturally, as we go to press, the stock market is having a good day. I also hear the talking heads saying that some of the stocks that have had a big hit recently are buying opportunities. Of course, stocks are not for everybody, and this is not a finance show. So I do not ever give anyone, even family members, financial advice. Well, why is the market shaking? In this case, the blame has been placed on the tariff war that Trump has started. As I have previously commented, I do not like his approach, which I would label a sledgehammer approach. I would start by again objecting to the big tariff assessments against Mexico and Canada. He has held some of that in abeyance, but it's not clear where this is going with regard to our two neighbors. In contrast, I'm totally on board with tariffs against our clear archenemy, China, and the European Union and India, which have been taking advantage of the U.S. for decades. Speaking of slow learners, the EU announced another $28 billion in retaliatory tariffs against the USA. I predict that this will not end well for Europe if the greedy scum there do not get on board. Europe is also being told to carry a larger share of its military responsibilities by the Trump administration. The focus is on steel and aluminum tariffs just introduced by Trump. I do believe the USA should be a leader in producing its own steel and aluminum. Not sure why we would need to import it when this is a highly capital-intensive industry, not labor-intensive. Note that the UK, which is no longer part of the EU, has said it will stand pat for now. I believe this is a very good move. Canada, also not so smart, is threatening electric supplies to several northern states and now has added $21 billion in retaliatory tariffs. I predict this will end even more badly for Canada than the EU. Dumb as a stump, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau will transition to new PM Mark Carney. Let's see if he does any better. This is classic Trump. Unfortunately, he has a decent concept, but the implementation is sloppy. I agree with the fact that we need to say no more Mr. Nice Guy. But how you get this mess untangled has been bungled so far. Specifically, I would like to have met with Canadian reps and reviewed the tariffs between the two countries. There's no question that Canada is off track and there needs to be a correction. Same for these other countries. As I understand it, the largest economy on earth has a government that periodically runs out of money. Then there are emergency resolutions to keep it funded for some period of time. This mess is due to decades of failure by both parties to put the USA on proper financial footing. I absolutely hate seeing Congress pass continuing resolutions, acronym CR, to keep the government open instead of doing the right thing. That right thing, of course, is balancing income and expenses and getting the country on the right track. Basically, the Dems handed Demented Joe a pass when they passed the last CR, continuing resolution, for the budget several months ago. Trump, as he tries to reform a broken system, faced the challenge of passing yet another continuing resolution just to get by so he has some running room. Congressman Thomas Massie did not vote for it in the House since he is demanding cuts. I agree with huge cuts, but now is not the right day to do this. Getting your ducks in a row and building toward a better government is key. So Speaker Johnson got it through the House. Passing it in the Senate was even tighter. It took Chucky Schumer and another Democrat to pass the CR in the Senate. So it passed 54-46 with only one Republican, Rand Paul, not voting for it. Rand Paul, I know, is another hardcore conservative like yours truly, and doesn't want us to keep signing off on bloated, ridiculous government budgets. Of course, the majority of the anti-American scum known as Democrats did not vote for the CR in the House or the Senate, and in fact, they're mad at good old Chucky. It's critical that we make mega cuts in the budget. This is just the tip of the iceberg. I'm not sure how a balanced bill will be passed in either house at this time, so more to come, folks. Days of reckoning for some universities. The government announced it was suspending all $400 million earmarked for Columbia University for failing to deal with anti-Semitism on campus. I completely agree with this approach. By the way, this Ivy is rich and can afford to run without Fed money, but I predict they will cry and whine. Harvard has not been cut yet, but they just announced a hiring freeze, blaming uncertainty. Harvard has enough money to run forever without additional funds, but will also try to cry and whine. Note, even private donations have been threatened due to the woke and anti-Semitic attitudes on these campuses. I support cutting that support as well. The day of reckoning may finally have arrived. Now, the Department of Education Civil Rights Office has announced it will investigate 60 universities for anti-Semitism. Well, it's about time. The office is citing Title IX for the compliance standard under the new Education Secretary, Linda McMahon. Audited universities include the biggie Harvard, but even an elite smaller one like Middlebury College. Parallel to this, ICE is trying to deport Columbia grad student Mahmoud Khalid for his role in organizing pro-Palestinian protests. They want to revoke his green card. According to his page on Wikipedia, he has already completed his master's at Columbia. A press report noticed that this alleged terrorist supporter is married to an American citizen who is pregnant. Unfortunately, a liberal New York judge has blocked his deportation at this time. I hope that is quickly reversed by a higher court, if appropriate. I say appropriate since Khalil has apparently denied the more serious allegations against him. Parallel to this, the Department of Justice has opened a civil rights investigation against the whole University of California system, that's 10 campuses, to review anti-Semitism across those campuses. The mystery of the attack on Doge. 90% of Americans in a recent poll believe the federal government is corrupt. The Dems are pushing hard and attacking Musk, but where will that lead them? Perhaps permanent minority status. Americans are overtaxed and underserved at every level of government. The day of reckoning for big government is here. Perhaps quietly missed in all this is that Musk cannot cut jobs. He can only identify waste. New Secretary of State Marco Rubio does have the authority, and he's announced a cancellation of 83% of future USAID contracts. Again, I cautiously endorse this since there's so much waste and abuse in what was supposed to be a good thing for those in need around the world. Rocket Mortgage will acquire Redfin. In an interesting marriage of real estate industry players, Rocket Mortgage will acquire the online real estate listing company Redfin for $1.75 billion. This is an all-stock deal. My regular audience knows that I'm a strong opponent of the rash of huge mergers. However, my cutoff is $10 billion. In addition, an all-stock deal looks more like a cooperative effort from a financial standpoint for both companies. Walgreens taken private. Walgreens, along with its affiliated brands, Duane Reade and Boots, is a true household name in the U.S. However, a failure to keep up with the times and overexpansion of expensive retail locations has caught up with them. The chain has suffered in the stock market while closing many stores to stabilize its business model. In fact, while my local stores are still operating, I drove by a closed high-profile location this week. One article noted that Walgreens has been public for 100 years. The play is that a private equity firm, Sycamore Partners, will pay $11.45 a share in cash. Sycamore will then be responsible for the current debts and obligations of Walgreens. That could make the deal worth almost $24 billion. In previous shows, I have mentioned that CVS and Rite Aid have also been closing stores. Reports suggest that it's getting tougher for these big drug retailers to get reimbursed for some of the medications by insurers. I know Medicare and Medicaid are also getting more aggressive. I am familiar with the cost of some of the meds still under patent. You know, the ones with the silly and endless TV commercials. I've heard numbers like $5,000 a month, $10,000 a month, and even $20,000 a month. No wonder times are tough. I discussed this with a friend of mine who asked a key question. Why does anyone care about a public versus a private company? Hey, that's a good question. So I asked my favorite finance professor, and we agreed that for customers, it might not make that much of a difference. However, at the same time, locations may be reduced further and other changes to enhance profitability may follow. That could change the customer experience. Housing market in turmoil. Reports are that the number of unsold new homes has surged in previously hot markets like Texas and other Sunbelt states. The challenge is that builders, when pressed, can discount their homes to get them moving, which then causes the buyers to move to the new home market and reduces demand in the resale market. Austin, Texas, up the road from Houston, is often mentioned lately as a tough, expensive market that is experiencing big issues. All I can say is that housing is expensive, but real estate taxes and insurance are an even bigger concern today. My regular audience knows that I have kind of a love-hate relationship with regard to the new HHS Secretary, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. I'm a longtime supporter of well-established vaccines, and while he has changed his tune a bit, it still causes me a little heartburn. On the other hand, I'm a self-labeled health nut with a focus on protecting our children. I'm very happy that RFK Jr. is calling on the food industry to eliminate potentially harmful artificial food dyes. Earlier this year, prior to Kennedy's confirmation, the U.S. banned the artificial food dye known as red number 3, which has been shown to cause cancer in animals and is used in foods, dietary supplements, and oral medications. Let's get on with it. Let's get these poisons away from our food chain and our medical chain. Vandals targeting Tesla dealerships to protest Elon Musk. In fact, there are many Teslas here in Houston. I saw one with a bumper sticker that said, "I bought my Tesla before I knew who Elon Musk was." Moron. In a crazy twist, those who claim to support liberal causes, including the environment, are committing heinous damages, primarily at Tesla dealerships. There are reports of fires, graffiti, and worse. The most egregious report I've heard so far is there is a woman in Colorado who vandalized a Tesla dealership 4 times. Time to either send her to prison or to an insane asylum. What part of the fact that the U.S. government is the most wasteful operation in the history of the world do these fools not understand? This is Dr. David D. Shine. Thanks for joining me for this special edition of Saving America. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite platform. Remember, we always welcome comments from our growing audience. You can contact us at ClaremontManagementGroup.com.